Joshua's conquests. Canaan was to become the home of the Israelites after 40 years of wandering in the desert. But first, they had to conquer the land and drive out the inhabitants. To do so, they used various weapons: swords, spears, the bow and arrow, and slings. And for armor, they had shields and helmets made of leather or bronze. To capture a city, the Israelites would ram large wooden beams against its gates and walls. Sometimes they would dig tunnels under its walls and invade, or they would throw torches over the walls to set the city afire. At other times, they would coax the people outside the city, where they would engage them in hand-to-hand combat. Before Joshua crossed the Jordan, he knew he needed to find out the strength of the cities they wanted to conquer. He sent 2 spies to Jericho and the surrounding neighborhoods. There, his spies lodged with a woman named Rahab. But before long, the spies were recognized and reported to the king. When Rahab heard that the king was sending his soldiers after the men to arrest them, she hid them on the roof of her house. The king's soldiers sought them in vain, but never found them. When the soldiers had gone, Rahab made the spies promise that when the city was taken, they would spare her and her relatives. In turn, she agreed to display a scarlet cord in her window as a sign to Joshua that the city was ready to fall. When the spies agreed to this plan, she let them down from the roof by a rope, and they fled to the mountains. Here they stayed for 3 days before crossing the Jordan and rejoining Joshua. The spies told Joshua there would be no trouble in conquering the city because the people were overcome by fear even at the mere thought of the attack. After 3 days, at God's command, Joshua ordered the priests to carry the Ark of the Covenant into the Jordan River. As soon as they had set foot in the water, the course of the river stopped, and a dry path appeared, much as Moses had parted the Red Sea. The priests carried the ark to the middle of the river and remained standing there until all the Israelites had passed over. At the prompting of the Lord, Joshua then appointed 1 man from every tribe to return to the Jordan and to bring back with him a large stone from the riverbed. With those stones, the Israelites built a monument in the middle of the river to honor their miraculous passage. After the monument was completed, Joshua commanded the priests to carry the ark out of the riverbed. As soon as they had done so, the river began once more to take its natural course. On the western bank of the river, in the plains of Jericho, at a place called Gilgal, the Israelites pitched their camp and celebrated the feast of the Passover. The manna that God had provided every day during their long wanderings in the desert now stopped appearing. They had food produced by the land, so they no longer needed the manna. Their wilderness journey was over. Soon, the Israelites would invade the powerful city of Jericho. One night, an angel of the Lord with a drawn sword appeared to Joshua and gave him detailed instructions about how Jericho was to be taken. As the Lord instructed, Joshua sent 40,000 fighting men to march around the walls of the city every day for 6 days. On the 7th day, the soldiers, the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and all the Israelites marched around the walls 7 times. At the end of the 7th time around the city, Joshua gave the command, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city!" At that moment, 7 trumpets sounded a continuous blast. The people gave a mighty shout, and the walls fell. The soldiers rushed into the city from wherever they stood and killed all the inhabitants except Rahab and her family, who had helped their spies. Joshua then marched against Ai, a city northwest of Jericho. The spies he sent to scout this city underestimated those they would attack, telling Joshua to only send a portion of their army. He followed their bad advice, and the inhabitants of Ai, on seeing Joshua's forces, rushed on them and defeated the Israelites. Joshua cried out to the Lord, asking him why he had allowed the Israelites to be defeated. God revealed to Joshua that the cause of the defeat was the disobedience of one of his men. The guilty man was found to be a man named Achan, who had retained some of the treasures of Jericho for himself, though God had commanded that all the treasure be given to the tabernacle. Achan had stolen silver and gold, then hidden it in the ground under his tent. For his crime, he was punished with death. Once Achan had been removed from the people, God said to Joshua, "Do not fear or be dismayed. Take all the fighting men with you and arise. Go up to Ai. See, I have given into your hand the king of Ai and his people, his city, and his land." In his second attack, Joshua resorted to strategy. He sent 5,000 men to lie in ambush around the city. With another 5,000, he approached the gates. Just as before, the soldiers of Ai rushed out at them, and the Israelites, pretending to flee, tricked them into pursuing them far from the city walls. The army hiding in ambush then closed in from the rear and destroyed the city. All the people of Canaan were now in great fear and decided to join forces. 5 cities banded together to attack Joshua, with the king of Jerusalem serving as their leader. Because the city of Gibeon would not join their league but made a treaty with Joshua instead, they decided to punish it. Joshua hurried by night to assist the city of Gibeon. He came upon the enemy's camp and attacked it by surprise. The Lord assisted by killing many of the enemy warriors with large hailstones. Though the battle was going well, Joshua feared nightfall would come and end the battle before their victory was complete. In the dark, the armies could no longer see to fight. The combat would cease and the enemy would regroup to fight another day. With great confidence in God, Joshua cried out to the sun and moon, commanding them to stop moving across the sky. God answered his prayer, and in that moment, the sun and moon both stood still, giving Joshua the time he needed to secure victory. The 5 kings fled and took refuge in a cave, but Joshua pursued them and killed them all. By this and other victories, he gained control of the southern half of Canaan. The cities in the north of Canaan also attempted to unite their forces against Joshua, but God was with him and the Israelite armies that he led. He marched against these enemies and defeated them as well. He followed them as they fled to ensure they were all destroyed, then returned and took their cities for the Israelites.